welcome to a special edition of Bronx Talk. With the primary set for Tuesday, June 24th, as part of BronxNet's ongoing commitment to voter literacy, we're hosting interviews and debates with candidates running for office. Tonight we focus on the race for the Democratic nomination in the 14th Council District, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of University Heights, Morris Heights, Mount Hope, Fordham, and Bedford Park. One of the two challengers in this three-person competition was a law fellow with the New York City Council, a legislative intern for U.S. Congress, and the New York City Council. And he was also a legal extern with the New York State Supreme Court. Please join me in welcoming Bryan Hodge Vasquez to Bronx Talk. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, congratulations on the campaign.
Thank you, thank you.
Let's just ask the very basic question. Why, when two experienced council members are running, do you think it's time for you to become the council member in the 14th Council District?
Well, thank you for that question, Gary. And like you said at the beginning, some of my experience includes being a legal extern at the New York State Supreme Court, working at the U.S. Congress with Congressman Adriano Espaillat, working in the New York City Council as well as a legal fellow, and also having a legal degree and a law degree myself. And what we're seeing right now in the Northwest Bronx is we've seen a decade of inaction in our community. We have collapsing buildings, gun violence at the highest rates in all of New York City, grocery prices as well, and a community that is filled with litter all the time. So we need to make a change in our community, and my experience speaks for itself, and that's what I want to do to change our community.
Well, let's start with any number of the things that you mentioned. You talked about collapsing buildings. Of course, affordable housing is a very big issue for the 14th and as well as all the districts in the Bronx and throughout the city. Yep. How do we improve that situation? It's easy to say it's a problem, but of course solving it is another issue.
Yes, so one of the things that is specific that we need to change is, in the example of a collapsing building, we had a building collapse in our district in 2021. That district had maintenance-related complaints to 311 for over a decade. So what we need to do as a city council is we need to ensure that we increase the funding for Department of Buildings so that we have more inspectors, but also increase the funding for 311. And so that way we have more timelines as to repairs. So not only increase funding, but on top of that, we also need to create a portal for timeline of repairs so that we know as a tenant when we put in a repair request to either our landlord or in the case of NYCHA to the 311, that it gets completed.
Is there sufficient buildings that are in disrepair that could be repaired that could ultimately help ease the affordable housing crisis? In other words, many people say, well, it's one thing to build new housing, it's another thing to recondition existing abandoned apartments or inefficient apartments.
Yes.
Is that a general direction that would be worthwhile?
Yes, and that's one of my points for addressing the housing crisis. Right now, we have apartments that are rent stabilized, but not being leased. They're vacant apartments. One of the reasons that they're vacant is because the landlord is concerned with the cost of the renovation, that oftentimes these renovations could be upwards of $50,000, $100,000 just to renovate the apartment. The rent coming in wouldn't cover that cost, so there is no funds for them to be able to do that. One of the things we need to do as a city council is increase that funding, create more grants so that we can have these apartments renovated and leased out because we have a housing crisis.
Let's talk about NYCHA a little bit. Funding is a major consideration for NYCHA. How do you ensure that public housing gets the repairs and dignity they deserve, especially with shrinking support from the federal government, which has funded NYCHA for, of course, many years?
Mm-hmm. So first and foremost, our NYCHA neighbors and residents deserve to live with dignity. They deserve to live free of leaky apartments, vermin, and overall a lack of renovations. They deserve to live in better housing. One of the things we need to do, like I mentioned, is we need to increase the amount of the budget to have more folks able to make the repairs, because right now that budget is not there. We don't have enough people to make the repairs in these apartment buildings.
So you think that the city can pick up some of the slack with the commitment to do so?
So
the budgetary commitment to do so.
So one of the things that the city needs to do is not only increase the funding within our budget, but we also need to work with our state and federal counterparts to ensure that we have a voice and increased budgeting in their budgets as well.
Let's just, speaking of development and those kinds of things, let's talk about the Kingsbridge Armory. The city claims to have come to a conclusion after a couple of decades of work. Are you satisfied with what you have seen there? Is that, are you ready, if you were elected to the city council, are you ready to move forward?
So currently what we see happening with the Kingsbridge Armory is we see, and we have seen in the past, decades of corruption that hasn't allowed that project to move forward. It seems as if that story is happening once again with the Kingsbridge Armory. As a council member, one of the things that I will ensure happens is that we move the Armory forward, because at the end of the day, we have a housing crisis in our community, and we need to build not only more housing, but more community space that can be used.
So you're not suggesting, or are you suggesting that there be housing at the Armory? That is or is not what you're...
I am definitely suggesting
You're
that. We have an
suggesting
housing affordability crisis in New York City.
And you think that property could be used for that?
Partly housing, and then it's because it's 800,000 square feet of usable space.
You have been involved in helping to feed hungry Bronxites who are
Yes, I have.
food insecure. Are more public subsidies in addition to SNAP benefits to food insecure families the answer, or what is the answer?
So one of the issues that we have in the Northwest Bronx is our grocery prices are extremely high and the quality isn't there. What often happens is that we have to leave our community to find groceries that are higher quality and less costly. One of my plans as a council member is change that so that we not only have higher quality goods in our grocery stores, but at lower cost as well. Because if we can go into other boroughs and have that happen, we should be able to have that in the Northwest Bronx.
How does a council member do that?
So one of the things we can do is we can work within our tax code to create tax incentives for these grocery stores to put in more generic brands that can reduce the cost to the end consumer. So there's ways that within the constraints of the city that we can immediately institute plans and policies to be able to reduce those grocery prices and increase the quality.
With stricter gun laws not likely to come from the federal government at this point, I mean, we can hope for it, or others can try to say this is what we need. It doesn't appear politically that that's going to happen. And New York State has some of the toughest gun laws in the nation. How do we reduce gun violence in the 14th Council District and, of course, across New York City?
Yes, so one of the things that is in my district, specifically in the 14th Council District in the Northwest Bronx, we have the highest level of gun violence in all of New York City. So what we need to do here is we need to increase the amount of police officers that are from our community. And not just that, we also need to ensure that our precincts and our officers participate in more community events and hold more community events. So it's not just an increase in officers from our community, it's also an increase in the interaction with our community.
On your in your campaign and on your website, you talk about the quality of life for LGBT plus residents in the 14th Council District. Assess for us, if you would, what is the quality of life and what are the issues? And then, of course, as a council member, if you are elected, how would you address that?
Yes, thank you for the question. So,
Sure.
As an openly gay Afro-Dominican man myself, I have always felt and have experienced discrimination. When I worked in the New York City Council and in Congress, one of my top priorities is creating legislation and working on legislation that can reduce discrimination. Discrimination on the basis of how you look, how you dress, the way your hair is. I have worked to change that, and as a council member, I will ensure that we can create policy that is diverse and reflects the diversity of our community.
Policy/legislation? I mean, let's delve into that just a little bit further. What do you see as a structure of a change program?
Yeah, so for example, my legal background is in the law. Currently, what we had happen a few years ago is that the Court of Appeals, the highest court in New York State, they shut down one of the city anti-discrimination pieces of legislation. And it's been a back and forth through decades of that. One of the things that we need in the council is people like myself who have that legal education, who can craft the legislation in a way, the anti-discrimination legislation in a way that is free from that hostility from the court that we're seeing specifically towards anti-discrimination legislation.
Before we run out of time, I just want to ask you about your experience working with Congressman Espaillat and working in the city council. How would that be relevant? What did you learn out of that would be applicable if you are elected to the city council?
Yes, one of the main issues of new folks who come into government that have never had the experience is not understanding how to actually wield the levers of power that is in those positions and how to actually move within those bodies. Given the fact that I have had that experience not only at the federal level, but also at the city level and in the courts, I know exactly how to navigate the bureaucracy to make sure that the people of the 14th Council District get the solutions that they finally deserve, because it's time for solutions over slogans.
We have maybe about a minute, 45 seconds left. You can just give us a closing statement why people should consider Bryan Hodge Vasquez when they go into the ballot box.
Mm-hmm. You should consider Bryan Hodge Vasquez when you go vote on June 24th, because it's time for solutions over slogans. As your next council member, I will lower the gun violence, I will lower the grocery prices, and I will lower the rent in New York City.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming on the program, and of course, it's nice to see new faces.
Thank you.
In looking to be elected, and we look forward to seeing you through the rest of the campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bryan Hodge Vasquez, folks. We'll take a short break, then we'll be back with another of the two challengers in this race for the Democratic primary in the 14th CD, Fernando Cabrera, will join us. Don't go away.
We're gonna start the show right now. This is my favorite part. Ready in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, this is Angel, and I am one of the instructors for the in-studio production. Here at BronxNet, we offer classes that can help you elevate, expand, and start your television career. All you have to do is sign up at bronxnet.org/education. For the past 7 years, I have been in various productions, spanning from talk shows, independent films, news reports, art displays, teachings, musical performances, and many more. Ain't that right, Angel? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angel. There are a lot of creative individuals that we're just waiting to sign up for the class. And if I may, can I also express that? Thank you, Angel. That's all the time we have left. Visit bronxnet.org/education and become a producer by taking the course. The class I offer is also in English, en español y también bilingüe. Nos vemos en la próxima clase.
Welcome back to Bronx Talk as we continue with our conversation with the candidates in the Democratic primary for the 14th Council District. One of the two challengers in this three-person competition is a former council member of the 14th Council District, a former senior faith advisor to Mayor Adams, and the senior pastor of New Life Outreach International Church. Please join me in welcoming back to Bronx Talk Fernando Cabrera. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you, and I want to congratulate you. You made it to the Bronx Hall of Fame.
I did.
I can't think of a better person to have received it this year.
I really appreciate you saying that. It doesn't distract or detract from the fact that we have work to do today. So after serving in the city council and then moving on, why did you decide to run again?
I decided to run again, Gary, because the situation at district is a dire situation. The community asked me to run back because we have right now crime in the 52nd precinct went up. Think about this, 109%, 129% in the 46th district, precinct. So we have a situation right here, this literally is out of control. And then we see housing. We've seen rents go up higher than any other councilmatic district in the last 3 years. So we need leadership. And everything rises and falls based on leadership. So I'm ready to step up. I have the experience. I have the knowledge on how the council works and also now how the mayor's side works. So when I bring that level of expertise, I'm able to be able to bring more resources into the district.
The report has been the overall index in crime through the city fell for the 7th consecutive month with a 3% decrease compared to the same month last year. Some other specific crimes showed a decrease: robbery, burglary, grand larceny. Why in the 14th council district do you say that the crime is going up, and what are the issues there that's fueling that?
Yeah, so we have a gang problem in our district. And this is why we need a leader that understands the situation. Look, I was the co-chair of the Gun Violence Task Force. We started the Cure Violence program, not just for our city, but throughout the entire city. 27 councilmatic district now has that program because I got it started. So we need somebody who understands the streets, who understands what's going on. And having worked in this councilmatic district since 1988 as a pastor, school counselor right here in Walton High School, Mercy College as a professor, I have a good understanding of what's going on. The second piece is the council member that we have right now, Pierina Sanchez. Unfortunately, she advocates defunding the police. That sets a tone. This is reported in Riverdale News, this is in Norwood News, and the police department, obviously, they're going to take a step back whenever they don't have political cover. I'm ready to be able to bring those after-school programs as well that I had before, and now they're no longer being supported, and also come up with new innovative ideas on how to reach that community.
What starts the gang problem, and then how does a leader take a look at the situation and say, we can't have this?
That's an excellent question. We have seen, the research show that the fatherless problem that we have, not just in our district, but all throughout, is the biggest problem and contributor. And actually, as talking to gang members, crew members, they tell me the same thing. So how do we deal with that? I started a program. Actually, I opened the doors when I was the chair of Juvenile Justice Committee at the detention center, in both detention centers, to be able to bring in a nonprofit organization that brings mentors, men. As a matter of fact, right now, I have some of our men from our church who go there and we have a floor. But we need more, and they need funding. Right now, they're not receiving any funding, so it locks their hands. So we need more programs that will be able to provide this level of mentorship for these men, and also through the Cure Violence program. By the way, I provided the funding for them to have their music studio. I want our young people to be so busy doing good, they will be too busy to do bad.
And how does that funding work? I mean, everybody says, hey, I'm going to provide funding for this. Now, we realize that council members are blessed with discretionary funding. That's one way. But is there a way to establish it so it doesn't matter who's in office, that it's part of the furniture in the Bronx?
Yeah, so here is discretionary funding. So it's to the discretion of the council member. So this is why the values of the council member matters. For me, public safety is paramount because it is the first responsibility of the elected official for the community to have public safety. And so also being able to work with the administration to bring extra resources, as I did when I was a council member, and also in the piece that we have not spoken about, education. I brought $175 million to our district, $6 million in police cameras. So this is, as you can see, we need somebody who has the vision, the strategy to be able to execute what is required to get our young people in the right track.
You, one of the things you mentioned at the top of the show was about housing, and of course, affordable housing is what I'm going to make a very educated guess is what's on your mind. Did the mayor and the city council have it right with the city of Yes?
Well, I will say this. I think that we need to look closely at what happens locally. So let me give you a prime example of that. The Jerome rezoning, because I was able to...
We had conversations about that in this room.
We did.
Sure.
And the doubters now are believers because the whole corridor now is being transformed into affordable housing. So whatever affordable housing units that you see right now, it really came under my turn. It takes about 3 years to develop this property. So this is why we need to look at other areas. The Fordham Landing is one of those, and other areas in our district that we could rezone and be able to have the affordable housing that is needed to keep our people here.
You know, I hadn't thought about having this discussion with you, but of course we did, I believe, have a program with you and now Borough President Vanessa Gibson, who were the council members involved. So what you had been given was something that was unacceptable. What was the process that went and took a rezoning plan that was inaccessible and turned it into what you look at now as a success?
So the corridor on Jerome Avenue, as everyone knows, we had a lot of mechanic shops. We have a lot of utilities there that really do not fit the neighborhood. And actually, even the Mechanic Association have mentioned that this is not the right place for them. You want an area where there is transportation, means of transportation, to be able to have affordable housing there. And so we were able to negotiate with the administration. I was able to get a brand new school into our district as well and be able to get funding into our district. By the way, let me just share this. A lot of people don't know. At that time, the President Council Member Pierina Sanchez had an opportunity to do a study because she worked for a nonprofit. She chose to use the funding from Manhattan instead of here, so we could have been better prepared. So again, this comes to who's vested here, who lives here, who's been here, who has the vision, and to also hear what our people want for our community.
I must ask you about the Kingsbridge Armory. Without going through all the steps, because both of us have had conversations about this for probably 2 decades, are you satisfied with what you see now? And if you are elected to the city council, what would you want to see happen and what would you like to see it turn out? Because right now we're not there yet,
yes,
but we're still working it.
So here's my concern. Right now, there's a major lawsuit taking place. There's allegations of corruption taking place there. I'd like to see that settle, to be able to analyze whether there are favors that were used or not. We need clarity. We need the dust to settle here in order for the right decisions to be made.
If it turns out that something improper was done, we're starting again?
Well, yeah. Well,
we've all been down this road on the Armory for years.
Here's the thing. The fact that you have someone here who has the experience and be able to expedite, because I do have the knowledge of what it takes to get it through. It is a complicated project for anybody coming in. So yeah, I think that we had to revisit. I mean, if it's been tainted and there was corruption, obviously it should not happen. I mean, this process is very clear. So there's a lot of questions.
Before we run out of time, you did mention education and your support of schools. What do the schools in the 14th Council District need?
Look, when I was in the Councilman District, I was able to have after-school program. We had a full orchestra, MS 396. We had choirs. We had technology brought in. And so what we need is more of the technology. We want to prepare our children for the future. to listen to the principals, to listen to the teachers, to go to the PTA meetings and say, what is it that you want? This is why, out of all the council members in the Bronx, I have brought more funding there. And part of that to the schools. And part of that, Gary, is because I was a school counselor. And often, a lot of times, elected officials do not understand the stress, the pressures, the lack of resources that are needed in school. So I come as a believer, someone who's going to add, as I did in the past, I will do in the future.
We'll give you 1 minute, council member. You can have a final statement of why. I called you council member because I'm so used to it from the past, but he's not a council member now, Mr. Cabrera. Just explain why you think people should vote for you.
First of all, I want to thank Gary, what tremendous host that he is, and congratulate him again in his nomination. Look, I don't have to sell you in the fact for our community right now that our community is hurting. We're in pain. People are scared. People are right now are the victims of crime literally out of control in our community. The one and the only candidate that has a track record with results to be able to bring about change is your servant. I'm ready to serve. Someone who brought crime down from 66% and was able to get 23. We had the unemployment rate 23.5 to 5.7, and was able to bring unprecedented amount of funding. I'm ready to do it again and take it to the next level. And I want to thank you again, Gary, for the opportunity to be here.
Fernando Cabrera, it was nice to see you again. I hadn't seen you in a long time personally, but we do wish you good luck in your campaign. We appreciate you joining us on BronxTalk.
Thank you.
We will take a short break, then we'll be back with the incumbent in the race for the Democratic primary in the 14th CD, that is Pierina Sanchez. We'll be right back.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city, and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak, and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back to Bronx Talk as we continue our conversations with the candidates in the Democratic primary for the 14th City Council District. The incumbent in this 3-person competition is the council member of the 14th District. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Pierina Sanchez back to Bronx Talk. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Gary, how's it going?
It's going well. We're trying to do a little voter literacy so people can know who to vote for. So why should voters consider re-electing you as a council member in the 14th?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I have been in office since 2022, so 3 years. And aside from being born and raised in the district and now raising my 2 kids, 5 months old and 2.5 years old, I'm really proud of the track record that we've built in these last 3 years. So we brought after-school programs and enrichment programs to every single school in District 14, where prior there were many schools without any programming. We have been able to fight for affordable housing in a really successful way. I'd like to talk about the $5 billion that we secured in December of 2024, which is in addition to record levels of investments for new housing, for preservation of older homes, for expanding home ownership opportunity programs like down payment assistance, and lastly, just the fight for jobs and the economic opportunities in our district. So we're really advancing the Kingsbridge Armory in it's on more of a successful path than it's ever been, and that's really why I'm here, why I'm running for re-election, is to continue the great work that I've started in the first 3 years in office over a final term, so that I can deliver for my neighbors.
We'll talk about the Armory in a moment, but your role as chair of the City Council Committee on Housing and Buildings gives you unique perspective on housing, not only in the 14th, but throughout the city. Let's start with City of Yes. Has the City of Yes affected the state of housing and development? And if so, how has it? Do you think it's gone well? Does it need to be modified? Give us the whole spectrum of the City of Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So the context, right? We are in a housing crisis in the city of New York. There's a lot of different things that we need to do in order to meet that challenge, right? I always say you don't wake up in the morning, put your shirt on, and are like, I'm ready to go for the day. You hopefully are putting on your shoes and your pants, and if it's cold, you're putting on your coat. And it is cold when it comes to the housing crisis. We have to do everything to meet the challenge. So that means that when we're talking about housing policy, we're building, we are preserving, we are creating opportunities for homeownership, all of these different investments, right? So that was my challenge with City of Yes. City of Yes was a mayoral initiative that was going to promise to bring more housing capacity, and I will explain what I mean by that, to every part of the city, right? Because there's many neighborhoods that haven't created any housing over the last 10, 20 years, and other neighborhoods like the South Bronx, like District 14, that have done a lot of housing production, right? And so that housing capacity means that we were just zoning. We were changing the zoning to allow for more housing across the city of New York. That to me was not enough. If we were going to have a moment where all eyes were on the housing crisis in the city of New York, the mayor was thinking about it, 51 city council members were thinking about it, the governor was making late night calls and thinking about it. I wanted to make sure that we were talking about it holistically. And so that's why I, with a couple of my colleagues and the speaker, we had a counter proposal called the City for All initiative. And that City for All initiative was this investment of $5 billion to sort of supplement changes that we're going to go through with City of Yes, right? And so we're talking about neighborhood pillars, which would help community organizers to organize buildings so that tenants can own it.
Have we seen the effect of any of this in either direction, positively or negatively? Yeah. In other words, has it really started, and is it affecting communities in the 14th and through the city at this point?
Absolutely. So on the one hand, for City of Yes, we have started to see applications come through because they're incentivized by the zoning that was added in specific neighborhoods. So that's going to be more housing in different neighborhoods. What kind of housing, how affordable it is, all of that is TBD, because now we've made more housing as of right. But on the other side, the City of Yes investments, I am bullish, right? I'm looking, as a chair of housing and buildings, I'm looking in the budget to make sure that all of the monies that we were promised are in there so that we can invest in our city.
Well, one more question about housing. We have so many things to cover in a short period of time. You worked on the Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative. That was dedicated to bringing all the things we want: economic growth, sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. But that plan was reformed and of course the current borough president had a hand in it as well. That plan was reformed before it took place. What lessons did that process teach you? Because I think people don't fully understand what rezoning fully means in terms of their neighborhoods. So what did you learn that's applicable now to development and things that do happen, in this realm in 2025?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. You don't know on how many levels, because then I'm going to turn to the community on this, right? The biggest thing that I learned on the Jerome rezoning is that we have to hold any administration, whoever is mayor, we have to hold them accountable, because people forget, people put money in the budget and then they take it out, and that's really what we've seen around the Jerome rezoning, right? So Jerome rezoning from about 165th Street all the way up to about 183rd Street rezoned and allows for more density. We're seeing that happen, right? We're seeing affordable mixed-use developments come up, and they're replacing many of the auto shops that were in different parts of the corridor. In exchange for that rezoning, and I was a member of the community board, right? Because I didn't just start when I was running for office. I've been active in the community for a long time. So as a community board member, we fought to get investments, right? You're gonna add this density, what are we gonna get in return? So we got $485 million just about of investments for the neighborhood. Many of those dollars have not come back into the neighborhood, and I'm currently fighting with the administration to get those dollars back.
So in other words, that's a lesson learned, that if you're going to make the promise or make the trade, so to speak, or make the arrangement, that you have to get that money. Very, very, very interesting. I'm glad I did ask you that question. So are you satisfied with the announcement about the city's plans on the Armory? They didn't select essentially what NWBCCC, the coalition and the surrounding communities' plans, and you worked on the community-friendly plan as well.
Yep.
So are you satisfied? Are we going to get in a good direction?
We are going to make this happen, all right? I keep saying that, one way or another. And so, look, this is the third go-around. The first time in 2009, the Kingsbridge Armory redevelopment failed because the development team refused to commit to a living wage. Community said, heck no, we are not going to support that. The second go-around, the Kingsbridge National Ice Center failed because they never actually had the money. So I come into office, the city has just wrestled control from the Koenig team, and I say, all right, we're gonna learn from the past, we're gonna get money for this armory so that whoever wins, right, whatever development moves forward is on good financial footing. And second, we're gonna make sure the community is up at the front, integrated into the process. I am so proud of these two things. One, we have secured $220 million from the city and the state as a down payment to the redevelopment of the armory. That's a $500 million project that is coming in with a $200 million down payment. So that's a really big. And
of course, going back to the last conversation, you got to make sure the money gets there. That's another story. Okay, but I'll accept what you say there. That's good.
You got to have a member that's paying attention, right?
That's
You can't phone it in. You have to really be looking at what OMB is doing every day. The second thing I'm really proud of, and this is brand new news, just happened last week, is that Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, which has been so active in the redevelopment of this armory and the attempts of the past, they've actually just signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the winning development team to work together toward a final project.
That sounds like a bottom line on that I think everybody would appreciate. Let's just move on to a couple of things. Crime is down in the city of New York, historic lows all through the boroughs, but the Bronx has more than its share. We represent 17% of the population, but we account for 20% of the city's vilest crimes. What are the issues that are involved in that? And then, of course, how do we address it? Nobody can accept that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was born and raised here. I'm raising my kids here. When I walk to the subway, when I'm walking my kids to the park, I want to feel safe, just like every single mom, dad, neighbor wants to feel safe in our community. And that's the number one issue on people's minds, right? It's public safety, and then it's housing. So when it comes to public safety, I've always said, and I'm proud to have a great partnership with our local police precincts, right? That smart policing, accountable policing has to be at the center of the equation, but it's not the only aspect of what keeps a community safe, right? And so that's why I have founded the West Bronx Community Safety Partnership, which brings together all elected officials that represent the West Bronx from our 2 members of Congress. It's 17 of us all together. Our state senators, our assembly people.
Yeah.
we're all coming together to say with one voice, the Bronx has an outsized share of community violence, of that's shootings, that's robberies, et cetera, the high index crimes. And this cannot stand. This cannot stand. We deserve better. Our families deserve the ability to thrive, and we cannot do that in fear. And so far, this partnership has secured a commitment from the governor of $10 million to invest in the root causes of crime, right? They are, Mayor Adams, Commissioner Tisch, who is now the commissioner of NYPD, they are sending us more boots on the ground. But what I'm saying and what the elected officials are coming together to say is that we don't just need more boots on the ground. Some folks who are going to be on the corner, in some instances watching something happen and not really able to intervene.
Right.
We need the after-school programs. We need the mental health supports, which is a really big problem.
And that's where
in the
that
neighborhood.
$10 million will
And
go.
that's where the $10 million will go, and we'll continue fighting for more.
I'm just curious, we're going to one quick education question and then we'll wrap it up. The charter school movement is gaining popularity among parents who are dissatisfied with traditional public schools.
Yeah.
Do you favor the trend, or and of course then can traditional public schools compete and be effective?
Yeah, this is a major issue of contention in our district. I represent every child, right, and all of their families in the district, from our public school parents to our charter school parents, which are, as you said, growing in number. For me, what's important is that our public schools are well resourced. They have all of what they need, right? So the socio-emotional supports for the kids, the resources for the teachers, the space, the facilities, the after school, all of these things, right? And my concern has been that as we grow as the charter movement grows, it's not growing, it's not growing the pie, right? It's not that there are more resources coming to the neighborhood, but that they're sort of taking from each other, right? And that's what I don't want to see. I want to see our public schools well-resourced, and our charter schools, if that's where parents are deciding to send their children, they should be well-resourced too.
Final question, did you make a selection for mayor yet? Have you endorsed anybody? Please tell.
I've been really focused on my race, and I have not chosen, made a public pick for mayor, although I'm thinking about it. But
Okay.
what I do say is that I will work with whoever is the next mayor in City Hall to make sure that our district has opportunities.
Councilmember Sanchez, we'll give you a minute. You can just conclude why you think people ought to vote for you coming up on June 24th.
Yeah. Thank you so much, community. Hello, Gary. Thank you for this opportunity. As I mentioned, I was born and raised in this neighborhood. I'm raising my 2 kids here. My parents are immigrants from the Dominican Republic, and I always share that one of my earliest memories is of being in a fire when I was growing up, and that was because a negligent landlord let it happen. That's what I'm up against. That's what I'm fighting, because that is what our community is still 30 years later still facing. So pick me, give me your number 1 slot so that I can continue to fight for us, right? For our families, for our homes, and for the jobs that can bring so many opportunities to the Bronx. Pierina Sanchez, here in love and in community.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. We appreciate your time. And we will just tell the folks that concludes tonight's program. The early voting period is Saturday, June 14th through Sunday, June 22nd. Primary, of course, Tuesday, June 24th. Make sure you vote. Thanks to our co-sponsors, the Norwood News and the Bronx Times and Schnepp's Media. Also thanks to our producer, Steve Powell, sitting in, and Rebecca Hemick is our producer in the other segments as well. Director is Will Guzman, Urelis Encarnacion on graphics, Ian Neville on audio. Editor is Yessi Diaz. We have a cast of thousands who work for us here in the studio. And of course, to you too, it's always about the people of the Bronx. We'll see you next week. Good night.